Hello everyone and welcome. It's 1:15 and we're just going to kick off now the launch event of the London Kidney Network. So we've come together as a new pan-London Kidney Network, although of course there's been a huge amount of work already in both North and South London Kidney Networks and a huge amount of great ongoing work around quality improvement and wider transformation work, some of which we can go into in detail today. In particular, of course, today we're going to focus on two areas: prevention and learning from the COVID second surge. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Stephen Cass, Director of the London Kidney Network, to take you through the programme. I should say first, I'm Rob Elias. I'm a consultant kidney doctor at King's and clinical lead for the network. Over to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Rob. So hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Cass. I'm the director of the London Kidney Network. First of all, like Rob, a really warm welcome to the launch today, and we're pleased so many people could join us for the launch of the London Kidney Network. The network is fundamentally about one thing, and that's about improving clinical outcomes and improving the experience of both our patients and our clinicians. And clearly the most important part of the network is its people. And what we tried to create today is the first formal event for the London Kidney Network is an opportunity for people to be able to share their ideas, share their experience, and to learn from each other. And critically, this event is a little bit about learning from presentations, but mainly about discussion. And we're trying to give people in the programme the space to talk and critically the space to listen. So that's what today is really about, is thinking about sharing from experience and continuing to understand what best practice might be elsewhere and learning from each other. Before we dive in, I must really thank people who've helped organise the event, a whole host of people behind the scenes in the Kidney Network as well, but also the many speakers and the people joining the breakout rooms. Really grateful for the time you've spent to plan today and obviously for today as well. And a small team from the Renal Registry who are doing the back office work behind the scenes, who I'm assured will make things run really smoothly. So fingers crossed for that. What I'd like to start by doing is just take you through the programme briefly. We've not that quickly, thank you. So we're going to start with Rob. Rob's going to take us through a little bit about the history of the network, the rationale for a single kidney network in London, and just take us through the clinical priorities for this coming year. And then the main meat of the work today is in two sections. The first one is really about prevention, which is not a quick fix. We know this takes decades to work through in terms of populations and systems, but we're beginning this work now for the first time in a long while, taking advantage of some new therapies on the market particularly. And we'll hear from a session chaired by Kieran McCafferty. Kieran's a nephrologist at Barts, who chairs the prevention work stream in the network. And Kieran's going to steer us quite carefully through a set of presentations to start with, so we can learn some new facts and new content, and then to move on from that, and we'll have a chance for a discussion in the breakout groups. So we've got a number of specialists sharing their thoughts in the presentations, and a really good presentation for a patient as well, a recording for a patient. And then on the next slide, we'll just highlight some of the breakout groups. And this is an opportunity for you to engage in discussion. And I said that's the most valuable part of today, is having that conversation and sharing people's ideas and exchange of thought. So the way we've arranged it is 3 breakout groups of 25 minutes each, then a chance to feed back from the breakout groups and a further discussion as well. And that brings to a close the time that we're going to spend on prevention. And if we get this right, hopefully we'll have some new ideas to put into our work on prevention. I will also highlight ways in which people who are interested in prevention work can join in the work as well over the course of the next few years. Then we have another comfort break, a short comfort break, and then we're going to the second major part of the event, which is really quite a change of pace. And that's to reflect on learning from COVID. Now, obviously, we're heading into the third surge, so it's quite a timely conversation today. We've got a session here with 2 short presentations, which are based on our learning from the data particularly. One from Ben Kaplan about transmission in dialysis units, and a second one from Debu Banerjee about the impact of ethnicity on COVID and kidney patients. The bulk of this session are 2 sets of breakout conversations, which again provide an opportunity for people to join the conversation and have their say and their input into this. This whole section is chaired by Claire Sharp. Claire very kindly led the clinical advisory group that we held every week almost during the COVID surges. So this gives Claire a chance to kind of corral and collate some of the conversations that took place over the course of the last really 12 to 18 months. Particularly from this session, what we're interested in extracting and sharing is people's ideas about this coming surge and subsequent surges, how we build on that experience and put that into practice. So a chance to feedback from those breakout sessions, again chaired by Claire, and then Rob's going to bring the session to a close at the very end. So we should all be finished around about 5:30, all being well. If we just go on to the obligatory housekeeping, quite a challenge with so many breakout sessions. We have a plan, we hope it's going to work. It really helps if people stay on mute when they're not speaking. Got quite a large audience today, so if people can make sure you're on mute, and if you're not speaking or participating, if you turn your cameras off as well, that means that those people that are either speaking or leading some of the breakout conversations, then their faces are visible, which makes it easier. Having said that, this event is all about participation. So what we'd like you to do is engage. So right throughout the event, please use the chat room. The event is being recorded. We're recording the main room that we're in now, formally through Zoom. We're also going to record the breakout rooms, and each of the breakout rooms have note takers as well. But please do participate. The diversity of this group is fantastic. So use the chat function. We can't promise to answer everything today, but we will record everything and we'll bring your comments into a summary report we're going to produce after the event. In terms of engaging and talking, you want to raise your hand using the function on Zoom. If you wave at people, it's unlikely, given the volume of people that we've got, that the chair will be able to see you. So please raise your hand using the Zoom system. We have the breakout rooms are organized such that we have a chair and a moderator as well. So separate people keeping an eye on hands and on the chat room. So hopefully we'll be able to invite as many people as we can to join the conversation as well. That will obviously be at the chair's discretion. If you're going to speak, please turn your camera on as well. And then people can see your smiling face at the same time as hearing your good thoughts. After the event, there will be a survey sent out, and that will be your chance to apply for CPD points as well. I think that was all the housekeeping. We have 2 or 3 short breaks planned. That'll give you a chance to have a little break and a comfort break as well. So that's all from me on the housekeeping. Final point is just a quick note of disclosures. So we have asked all of the speakers and all of the people participating in the breakout groups in those panels to share their disclosures, which we have here today. So thank you everyone for those. So if that's all okay with everybody, no burning questions, we'll dive straight in and I'll ask Rob to introduce the Kidney Network and talk about priorities for the coming year. Rob.
Thanks very much indeed, Stephen. So this is going to be a quick whistle-stop run through the network as a whole and the priorities. I'm going to want to hand over to do the Prevent and Protect session at 1:30. Next slide, please. So here we are. Next slide, thanks. So here we are, hello London. This is our sort of patch, if you like. I think it's well worth noting that London holds more than 25% of all the renal activity in England. There is a huge amount that we can do collectively for our people with chronic kidney disease. And just thinking about the numbers involved, even a very small improvement in quality, efficiency, productivity can make a huge difference to large numbers of people's lives, as we all know. And we have to adopt a whole system approach, which means not just the providers and the secondary and tertiary services, but also primary care commissioners, patients, charities, wider multi-professional, multidisciplinary groups. We want everyone to be involved. Next slide, please. I mean, I wanted to kick off with a big thank you, really, because thank you, for being here today and for making the time. That's much appreciated. Thank you for being part of the big, broad diverse community that is looking to improve. And in my experience, it's always a pleasure to work as part of this wider team. And I personally always feel energized by sharing with other people in the renal community in London, and I think most of us do feel that way. And also thank you for your massive hard work over the last 18 months. We need to kick off by acknowledging what we have all been doing, how much hard work it has been, how tired and how much sort of rest and recovery is needed for people. I hope that what we can do is talk about quality improvement in a way that yes, of course it's hard work, yes, it's a burden, but what we want to do as a network is to make it easier for people. And what we saw in the collaboration, I'm not going to talk through these slides in detail, they will be available afterwards. We've put quite a lot on them for you to come back to after the event. What we can see here is we think that there was a massive benefit that we saw from coming together across London as renal teams to share learning and to share ways of working during the pandemic, and we think we can carry a lot of that great collaboration on into the future. Next slide, please. So when we come to the network, what's the purpose of the network? In a nutshell, it's about collaboration. It's about saying we can come together to share, to define and share best practice, to share learning. So I think if we can collectively say, what does good look like for our people with chronic kidney disease and with acute kidney injury? What does good look like, so that we can share that and have a consistent story to tell to our teams, our commissioners, our patients, everyone involved in that care. We can get a consistent message and a consistent direction of travel, and then we can provide the data to flag up excellence, data to flag up unwarranted variation, and data that will drive the underlying quality improvement. And of course, that's also what we're about, is supporting that quality improvement. And as I say, there's no getting away from the fact that it's incredibly hard work, but hopefully we can, as a network, minimize duplication, make things more efficient, and help. Next slide, please. There are some drivers. There are many drivers to improvement. I'm going to name very briskly just a few. Here's patient reported experience measure, the national measure that's been in place for the last few years. Very high response rate from London, which is great, but the scores are low. There may be lots of complex reasons why that's the case, but I think we know that we don't want to be in that place where, as London as a whole, is scoring low on patient reported experience. Next slide, please. Health inequalities, diversity, again, a huge amount to look at here, and I'll come on in a minute to talk about the expert group. There are lots of interesting facts on this slide that we're all aware of to a certain extent. We know that there are high percentages of ethnic minority groups across London. We know that people from lower socioeconomic groups are more likely to develop chronic kidney disease. We know that, for example, people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic populations are less likely to receive a kidney transplant. I won't go on. I think there is general consensus and agreement that health equity has to be at the heart of what we do. And I think we should be determined that London leads the field nationally in this, given our population. And we want to do that. Next slide, please. And then one of the other obvious drivers of the need to transform services and develop is the impact of growth. So here's a slide just outlining projected growth at relatively conservative rates of total numbers of dialysis patients, so that when you're looking across London, we might expect by 2023 to need to provide a dialysis capacity roughly the size of King's current capacity across the whole of London by 2023, and perhaps the Royal London, parts of the Royal London by 2028. Those are the kinds of numbers we're talking about based on historic trends and modelled growth, and that's obviously highly significant. Next slide, please. So what are our priorities? We're talking about prevention today. Number 2 is self-management and choice, and behind those few easy to say words lies a whole world, obviously, of complex work, pathways, needs and requirements. We need to make sure, we must make sure that every person in London has access to a properly supported, properly commissioned, properly resource supportive care pathway where appropriate. The same for home therapies, both peritoneal dialysis and home hemodialysis. The same for transplantation. Are we doing enough by way of giving people access to transplantation, access to preemptive transplantation where possible? And are we doing well enough on vascular access? I won't try and go into detail on any of these. There are a couple of slides coming up that outline them for you to come back to later. I'm definitely not going to try and do those justice today, and I know we're not, and we need to revisit that, and I would encourage you to get involved. I think it's absolutely worth saying that there's real alignment here between the London priorities that we have discussed as a system quite widely and the relatively recent national priorities as outlined in the Renal Service Transformation Plan and in the GIRFT recommendations. And it does feel like there's a real moment of opportunity here with good alignment nationally and regionally and locally. Next slide, please. I'm not going to stop on this one, but worth a look at the national priorities as outlined as part of the Renal Service Transformation Programme. Next slide, please. How are we going to go about trying to help you to deliver improvement? We have 4 expert advisory groups: clinical advisory group, health equity group, patient partnership group, and a clinical information group. And then, as I've already outlined, those specific quality improvement work streams. Next slide, please. We want to deliver measurable improvement, and I won't pretend that it's easy, nor indeed that it's easy necessarily to absolutely pin down what our metrics need to be and how we implement them and how we collect data, and that's something that we need to continue to work on. But I think we have great work already up and running in these work streams, and we have clear objectives and outputs. So please do hook in with your local team if you haven't already, or with the wider London team. Next slide, please. And I'm just going to mention again the health equity group there, which will have a role both in terms of helping all our other work streams to look at health equity within the work that they do, but also to think about how we as a whole, as sort of London renal community, identify and think about health inequalities. Next slide, please. These are our members and partners, and as I said at the outset, it has to be about whole system working. And one of the things arguably that the network can do that can sometimes be more difficult to do locally is bring the relevant people together within the system. And again, we need you to tell us what we can and can't do to help. And if we're not bringing people together in the way you think might be helpful, then please let us know. Next slide. There's a team of people working within the sort of the central network team, if you like, which is both the core team of quality improvement project and business intelligence leads, but also the work stream and advisory group chairs. Again, I'm not going to go through those names. Just to list them, please do come back to this slide or ask questions if you want to in future at any time. Next slide. I guess the ask of the take-home message from today is that there's a great deal of work going on. There's a lot to be involved in, and ultimately, as I say, this network is about working for you to enable you to do the improvement and the transformation that you want to do. So please do get involved. Please get in touch, and also please try and shape the work and let us know if there are things that we could be doing differently. Thank you very much.